Hello, in this movie tutorial we will be covering everything in HyperZap. This is also covered in the PDF manual, Studio Magic 2, Chapter 3, HyperZap. Now you'll notice that there are two sections under HyperZap, Color Pop and Grunge Boost, and right here there's a drop down menu and we're going to be getting into that shortly. He was cut out from his background using the Studio Magic cutout panel. So let's open up Grunge Boost. And you've got two defaults here, entire image or select subject. I'm going to select the subject, click create. I'm going to desaturate him a little bit and bump up the intensity, update. The idea here is to get him to blend in with this grungy background, so I'm going to desaturate him a bit more, click on update. And we can see here if we look in the layers palette that the Grunge Boost has created a couple of groups and 6 different layers. Once you have finished making your changes to Grunge Boost, it's important to merge the layers. The reason you want to merge layers when you're finished with Grunge Boost is that certain effects in the Studio Magic panels will not work until you merge the layers in Grunge Boost. Certain effects like Edge Light, Shadow Caster, or Select Subject will not work until you merge layers. Bear in mind that when you merge layers, you then cannot make any further changes to the intensity and saturation unless you click the undo button. And now we can see that the Grunge Boost has been merged into one layer that we can turn on and off. Now let's go to Color Pop. So let's go to the drop down here. These are all different kinds of effects and you can experiment with many of them, of course. I'm going to try Old School, Create. You'll notice that the brush is already pre-selected for me by the panel. I've got the opacity here at 20%, painting with black on the layer mask. So if I wanted to remove any of that old school effect, I could just paint in here and start to bring in a little bit of the color if I wanted to. So the more I paint on the layer mask here of the Color Pop layer, the more of the Grunge Boost merged version is showing through. And if you wanted to, you could go back to this Grunge Boost layer and lower the opacity and then more color would show through. So you've got complete creative control there. Let's bring up another image. Let's go back to Grunge Boost, entire image, create. So the Studio Magic panel has pre-selected the brush for me. I'm at 20% opacity. Painting with black on the layer mask, I can remove some of this Grunge Boost. Might be a bit too strong on her face. Just go over there a couple of times to remove that. Now of course if you wanted to add some back in, you just switch to white, press X on your keyboard and you could bring it back in. But I'm going to paint it away a little bit. It's a little bit too strong on her face there. Now I'm going to increase the intensity some and desaturate it a bit more. Update. Now if you merge the layers it works a little bit differently because we're on an entire image here. You can see it works a little bit differently. So I'm going to undo that. I'm going to leave the layers as they are and go over to Color Pop. Let's go to the drop down of different effects here. Wine Cooler, Create. And once again the brush has been pre-selected for me. Painting with black on the layer mask, I can just bring back a little bit of that color there into her face. Let's bring up another image. Now he's been cut out with the Studio Magic cutout panel. I want to show you something cool here. We're going to add a shadow, but we're going to do it a little bit differently here. I'm going to go to Grunge Boost, and I'm going to select it, Subject, Create. I'm going to merge the layers. Now I'm going to add a shadow with the Studio Magic cutout panel. So I'm on the Shadow Caster section. I just click on Create New Shadow. And I'm just going to reposition it a little bit here, drop the intensity down and soften it. So you can create a shadow either from this grunge merged layer or from the cutout of him. Let's return to Studio Magic 2 and we're going to use a color effect here. I'm going to scroll to the bottom here, use the teal, create. I'm going to reduce the intensity, update. Now as we can see in the layers palette here, the Color Pop effect is right at the top. If I wanted to move the Color Pop down so that it was just affecting the background and not him, it's very simple. Just click on Move Down. And I could move it back up again if I wanted to. Let's take a few seconds to review some samples of HyperZap. So as you can see, with HyperZap it's great to be able to combine the two effects, the Grunge Boost along with the Color Pop. And the panel makes it so simple to edit any of the effects. Let's review the different tones for Color Pop. And in your Studio Magic manual, Chapter 3 HyperZap, you have a visual reference for all the ColourPop colors, and you can just scroll through them to see which one you prefer. This concludes the HyperZap tutorial. Please join me in the next tutorial, Chapter 4 Reflections. Thank you.